The morning sun reflected off chrome bumpers of luxury vehicles arranged across Uncle Richard's estate like a high-end dealership advertisement. Mercedes sedans, BMW convertibles, and Tesla Model S cars formed a perfect semicircle behind my family members posing in designer clothes for what Richard called the Martinelli Legacy portfolio. Perfect positioning, Richard announced to the professional photographer. These images represent 3 generations of genuine success and wealth. I stood behind the photographer's equipment, excluded from the scene in my government employee wardrobe. For an hour, I'd watched relatives position themselves around symbols of entrepreneurial achievement while remaining invisible to cameras capturing family success. "We want images that scream accomplishment," Richard instructed, adjusting his Armani suit. "Real wealth, authentic achievement, the success that opens doors." My cousin David stepped beside his Tesla, afternoon light catching his Rolex. "This car represents my fitness empire hitting 15 locations. Pure business expansion." The photographer captured David's pose next to the $120,000 vehicle symbolizing his entrepreneurial success. "Jennifer, showcase that Cartier bracelet," Richard directed my cousin who owned luxury spas. "Our contacts need to see serious wealth indicators." Jennifer adjusted her diamond tennis bracelet worth more than most annual salaries. "This represents my best quarter. 6-figure months consistently." My mother appeared beside me with embarrassed resignation. "Sarah, maybe wait inside while we finish family success documentation? This is for relatives who've achieved financial independence." The suggestion I retreat like domestic help while family captured prosperity was humiliating. After 10 years climbing diplomatic channels, serving as Deputy Assistant Secretary for European Affairs, I was treated like the family disappointment unable to afford inclusion. "Government work is respectable," my Aunt Patricia said sympathetically, "but doesn't photograph well for wealth showcase. These images are for networking. People expect genuine achievement and luxury." My cousin Marcus laughed from his BMW position. "Sarah will never understand wealth building. Government employees settle for steady paychecks instead of real financial success. Lifetime mediocrity." The irony was staggering. While they posed with luxury cars from business profits, my diplomatic position included security allowances, international stipends, and housing supplements exceeding most their incomes. But my confidential compensation didn't manifest in visible luxury purchases. "The problem with government work," Richard explained to the photographer, "is earnings ceiling. Sarah's limited by taxpayer salary caps instead of generating wealth through entrepreneurship." David adjusted his designer watch. "Government employees never develop business instincts. They're comfortable being taken care of instead of taking wealth-creating risks." The photographer arranged group shots, positioning family around expensive accessories and vehicles while I remained excluded from Martinelli Excellence documentation. My secure phone buzzed urgently, emergency diplomatic communications. But I didn't dare check with family convinced government work meant unimportant administration. "Another bureaucratic emergency?" Marcus asked mockingly. "Urgent paperwork filing? Government administration never stops." His comment drew chuckles from relatives around Mercedes and BMWs, unaware the paperwork was encrypted NATO headquarters messages about developing security threats. I stepped behind the estate fountain to read classified communication, pulse accelerating as I processed urgent Eastern European developments. Intelligence indicated Russian military positioning potentially triggering Article 5 alliance responses, requiring immediate diplomatic coordination. My encrypted phone rang instantly. "State crisis. Department of State's Emergency Center with Presidential Priority Communications. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chin, thank God we located you." Urgent voice carried unmistakable crisis tone. "Developing situations across NATO frontiers require immediate European expertise. Russian activities suggest coordinated alliance testing. I can reach Washington in 4 hours. I calculated travel routes. Negative. Marine transport en route for emergency extraction. Secretary needs you at Brussels NATO headquarters by 1800 hours. High-level diplomatic intervention required for alliance unity." Emergency extraction to NATO headquarters meant crisis escalation beyond routine diplomacy into potential military response territory. Supreme Allied Commander specifically requested your participation, coordinator continued. European foreign ministers refuse coordination without State Department senior representation. Family laughter echoed from photoshoots discussing profit margins while their dismissed relative was summoned to prevent international conflicts. I returned finding Richard directing elaborate luxury vehicle arrangements. Sorry, I must leave immediately, I announced. Urgent situation requires my Brussels presence for emergency diplomatic coordination. Richard showed irritation. Brussels? Whatever minor government task you think urgent can wait until we complete legacy documentation. This represents thousands in professional investment. Jennifer laughed from her BMW position. Emergency diplomatic coordination? You're not Henry Kissinger. What urgent filing requires immediate European attention? Before explaining my classified work, military helicopter rotors resonated across Richard's exclusive neighborhood. Aircraft approached the estate, causing photographer confusion. What's that noise? David demanded, shielding eyes against approaching helicopters. Richard looked bewildered as military aircraft descended toward maintained grounds. I didn't authorize aerial activities. Who's landing on my property? Marine Corps helicopters touched down on prize lawn. I recognized State Department diplomatic security markings. Armed agents emerged, followed by a Marine colonel in dress blues carrying government credentials. Family photo shoot went silent as military delegation approached with federal authority. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chin? The colonel called across stunned gathering. Yes, Colonel, I responded, stepping forward from excluded position. Ma'am, immediate Secretary of State orders. You're required for emergency NATO crisis management. Allied governments request urgent American diplomatic consultation regarding Russian activities. Secretary of State and NATO crisis management reverberated across Richard's estate like seismic shocks, crumbling family's confident expressions. Richard stared at military officers with confusion, then turned to me with disbelief and dawning recognition. Secretary of State orders? What exactly is your government position? The colonel looked surprised between me and stunned family. Your family isn't aware of Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen's diplomatic rank? She coordinates all European relations for State Department senior leadership. Marcus paled completely, expensive Rolex suddenly insignificant compared to surrounding federal authority. European relations? You said international affairs, but we assumed clerical support. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen holds highest diplomatic positions in European affairs, Colonel explained professionally. Senate confirmed presidential appointment. She manages crisis coordination between NATO allies, oversees policy across 15 nations. State Department official approached, consulting secure tablet. Ma'am, urgent communications from German Chancellor's office and French President's team requesting immediate consultation. Emergency NATO session cannot proceed without senior State Department European assessment. Jennifer's diamond bracelet seemed trivial processing this information. German Chancellor? French President? You communicate with world leaders. Official nodded gravely. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen's diplomatic relationships are essential for alliance cohesion. European heads specifically request her involvement during American coordination crises. He retrieved official documents. Furthermore, your security clearance and diplomatic status mandate immediate presidential aircraft transport to NATO headquarters. Supreme Allied Commander awaits your threat assessment. David found barely audible voice. Presidential aircraft? NATO Supreme Allied Commander? We had no idea you worked such senior military leadership levels. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen coordinates between NATO Command and State Department policy, Colonel clarified. Her rank positions her among senior officials responsible for alliance unity and crisis prevention. Photographer abandoned camera equipment, watching federal security protocols implement around Richard's luxury display. Security agent reported via radio. Marine One support approaching for immediate Brussels transport. European allies request urgent American intervention preventing military escalation. Richard looked ready to collapse. Marine One? The President's helicopter. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen's status requires presidential aircraft for crisis transportation. agent confirmed. Her work directly influences presidential international security decisions. Official checked encrypted device. Ma'am, your diplomatic coordination during this crisis will likely result in presidential recognition. European relationships proved invaluable preventing alliance fractures during Russian provocations. Patricia stared amazed. Presidential recognition? Why didn't you explain holding such important government position? I attempted discussing work responsibilities, I replied, walking toward helicopter with security. Whenever I mentioned international coordination or European policy, you dismissed it as boring government paperwork. Colonel addressed family directly. Deputy Assistant Secretary Chen's compensation, including diplomatic allowances and international benefits, exceeds $280,000. Government package rivals senior executive private positions. As Marine One support helicopters prepared Brussels' departure, Richard's elaborate success photography lay in shambles across manicured grounds. Luxury automobiles and designer arrangements orchestrated for family achievement appeared absurdly insignificant compared to presidential diplomatic missions and NATO crisis coordination. Family stood motionless among abandoned photo props, finally comprehending that while posing with Mercedes for social media, their dismissed relative managed international relationships influencing global security and democratic stability. Ma'am, state official said, presenting top-secret briefing folder. The President requires your policy assessment before authorizing NATO responses. European allies depend entirely on your coordination expertise. Richard's networking photographs showcasing authentic achievement would forever exclude the member whose responsibilities shaped international policy and prevented conflicts. Perfect irony. While obsessing over luxury displays, their rejected sister quietly maintained alliance structures protecting democratic freedoms enabling their business prosperity. Helicopter ascending from Richard's estate toward emergency world leader consultations, family remained among luxury vehicles and accessories, confronting devastating reality that their unsuccessful government sister was among most internationally significant Western alliance diplomatic figures. Photography sessions celebrating genuine achievement became defining moment. Martinelli family discovered their narrow success definition was embarrassingly inadequate compared to global responsibilities their excluded sister shouldered daily. Richard's professional photographs would serve as permanent documentation of discovering authentic achievement sometimes requires security clearances preventing recognition, and protecting democracy might exceed luxury automobile accumulation significance. Secure communication continued buzzing with NATO headquarters, European capitals and presidential advisor messages as Richard's estate disappeared. Each notification represented diplomatic coordination influencing international stability, making luxury photo shoots seem like children's games while adults managed world-changing responsibilities. They excluded me from success imagery because government employment didn't align with materialistic preferences. But as Marine One carried me toward global leader crisis coordination, I realized their shallow aesthetic was never worthy of participation anyway.